Welcome back, everyone. We are, as usual, two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about something a little sad today. We're going to talk about some of the stars we lost from the 80s. And sadly, it seems as we get older, the list keeps growing. But we're going to talk about some of the ones that, for whatever reason, really struck a chord with us. And it was a big loss for us. And Lou, I know you have a lot of your personal favorites that passed away that were big in the 80s.
Definitely. I definitely have I think we probably all do, but I have a pretty significant list for sure.
Well, why don't you go ahead then and lead us off with somebody that you really miss from the 80s?
Oh, okay. This person I don't really miss from the 80s. I liked him as an artist. The reason I picked him though is that he was probably one of the first people that I remember from the 80s hearing that he passed away, and it was like, oh wow, it's starting to happen. Some of these people that were famous in the 80s are starting to die. So very obscure one, Eddie Rabbit, and he was sort of famous for songs like "I Love the Rainy Night" and "Driving My Life Away." And he died of lung cancer on May 7th, 1998. He was, I think, 56 years old. Yes, 56 years old. And again, it was just one of those things that it's like, man, wow, it's starting to happen. Some of these folks that were famous in the 80s are starting to pass away.
Wow, I hadn't thought of Eddie Rabbit in a long time, but yeah, I definitely remember "I Love a Rainy Night." It's, I think that was the only song of his I remember, but no, very interesting choice. And I have a lot to add to that. I don't really know much about his career, and it's sad, but I could see why. Yeah, all of a sudden we're starting to realize, like, wow, our immortality is definitely staring us in the face as we get older. But I'm going to start with one that's um, probably the biggest name on my list, and probably one of the ones that hit me the most. And everyone that knows me knows I'm a huge Randy Rhoads fan. Randy Rhoads is my guy. That's the person I've always wanted to be like and perform like and sound like. But this person is the reason most of us picked up guitars, and I'm talking about Eddie Van Halen. And Eddie Van Halen, since I remember being in the Foster City and being at Round Table Pizza and putting some money in the jukebox, and somebody told me about this band Van Halen, and I put on Eruption, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And I felt like Eddie never really. Um, I felt like that was the pinnacle to me as Van Halen won. Obviously, he was more successful in the 80s. You think about 1984 with Jump, Wait, I'll Wait, and then, of course, with Sammy Hagar later on, even more successful. Um, but that influence was undeniable. And sadly, we lost him a couple years ago at age 65. I know people that knew him or had met him, and for the most part they all said really nice things about him. Some of my coworkers were fortunate enough to meet him, and it was, it sucks that he's no longer with us. And even when they reunited with David Lee Roth, I was able to see them twice, once in Anaheim when they first reunited, and then they played a string of dates at the Hollywood Bowl. And it turned out those were the last shows at the Hollywood Bowl, were the last shows Van Halen ever did. And I was fortunate enough to be at one of them. And I remember trying to talk my wife into going. And she's like, "Do you really want to see this again?" And I'm like, "You know what? How many more times are we going to get to see Van Halen perform together?" And, it was sad to realize that was it. That was it. They never did perform together again. So, certainly fortunate that I saw one of his last ever live performances, and still a loss, huge loss that resonates with me today.
He was one that I had on my list as well. I had like three different Eddies, and he's one of the ones. So I'll have to find another one. Luckily, I've got a lot of backups.
So Eddie Rabbit was your first Eddie that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, yes. I fear you might have Eddie Van Halen on the list, and I didn't want to step on you, so I had that one towards the end.
All right.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely Eddie was, you know. arguably one of the most impressionable people that has laid hands on guitars. He sort of revolutionized the way that it's played and has influenced tons and tons of guitar players. So very, very good pick. Yeah, definitely a legend. Absolutely. All right. Well, I will go on to the next Eddie, and I am going to call
Is
out
this all
Eddie.
Eddie's?
It's not all Eddies. This is I had three Eddies, and you took one. So
All right.
the next one is Eddie Money. Edward Joseph Mahoney was actually his real name, and of course Eddie was famous for Two Tickets to Paradise, Shaken, Take Me Home Tonight, and he died somewhat recently of esophageal cancer, and at the age of 70 in September 2019. And I picked him because I don't know if you remember this, but there was this one time that we went to this event in Golden Gate Park called A la Carte a la Park,
Yep.
and it was basically sort of like a almost like a food fair where you go in and all these different restaurants had booths set up and you'd go in and be able to sample the different foods. And he was the artist that was there headlining, and we didn't really go to see him. We just went there for the food, and we chilled out and watched him for a little bit. But that's sort of the reason that I picked him the most, because I had that memory of us going to go check him out.
Yeah. Did you know before he became a singer, he was an NYPD cop?
I knew he was a cop. I didn't know it was an NYPD.
He was, and I do remember going to see him. What's funny is, I had his first album with Two Tickets to Paradise, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one. He had two really big hits on that album, and I had it, and I asked my cousin if she would take me to that concert, and she wouldn't take me. And so that would have been my first ever concert. Instead, it turned out to be Van Halen. But that's a great call. So if you had to pick your favorite Eddie Money song, what would you say?
Probably Shaken. There's a few of them that I like, but Shaken is one that I like a lot. I remember really being into that song when it came out.
I don't know. I just remember the video, and I think it's one of those songs where the video kind of turned me off on the song. Billy Squire, you know what that's about. But I think my favorite Eddie Money song was got to be "I Think I'm in Love."
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, for
I
sure.
really, really love that song. So, good call on Mr. Money, and I hope the next one's not Eddie from Iron Maiden because he was already dead. Um, I'm gonna bring up somebody that you probably don't even remember. I brought picked this person just because I think it's such a tragic story. And I'm talking about Rebecca Schaefer. Do you remember
Oh
Rebecca
no, I
Schaefer?
mm-mm.
So she was on the TV show My Sister Sam with Pam Dauber, up and coming young actress, had this really, earthy girl next door quality about her. And she was killed in 1981 at the 81 or I'm sorry, 88 or 89, at the age of 21, in the
Oh
prime of her
geez.
life. What happened is this gentleman became obsessed with her. And, I've done some studies about, people obsessing over celebrities. And one of the things is when they're on television, this obsession seems much greater. Why? Because you're in their home every week. It's not like you go to the movies and see them every 6, 8 months, every year. They're in your home every week. And so you tend to obsess more about them. And this gentleman became obsessed with her, paid $250 to a private investigator to find out her address. And I guess he had written her letters. One of them she actually responded to. He sees a movie that she's in, and in the movie, she's in bed with another guy. He snaps over it, goes to the house in the morning. She actually answers because she was expecting a script from The Godfather 3 to read because she was reading for a role in that movie. Kind of sees that he's a little unhinged, asks him to leave. Um, he goes, gets breakfast, comes back later. For whatever reason, she answered the door again. I don't know under what circumstance, if she didn't know it was him. He's got a gun. he shoots her point blank and kills her.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
and it was just one of those things I remember it really affecting me, thinking this girl had her whole life ahead of her. I mean, it was about the time when you and I turned 21 and we knew how much we were looking forward to life. And I just thought it was a tragic thing, so senseless. And a lot of the laws were changed in regards to this, simply because of what happened to Rebecca Schaefer. And, it's one of those great what if questions, right? What would have happened with her and her career had she lived? Could she have been a huge star? We'll never know. And it's sad. But I remember just how much that one affected me, her death.
Yeah, I don't know anything about her, and I don't even remember the series that you're talking about with Pam in it. The only thing I remember her in was Mork and Mindy. So I'll have to look that up and see if she looks familiar at all.
Yeah. Like I said, super girl next door type, very young. Um, just tragic.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I really want to call out Ronnie James Dio, but I'm not going to go there because that's just too predictable. I am going to go with one that was shocking to me because I didn't know that she had passed, and again very tragic. She was famous for singing a song called Gloria, another one called Self Control, and I'm talking about Laura Branigan. And again, I until maybe about a couple of years ago, I didn't not know that she had passed away. She died in her sleep from an undiagnosed brain aneurysm. And yeah, she was like 52 years old, and I've got the year that she died here, but it's off of my screen right now. 2004. So again, I wasn't a huge fan. I liked the songs when they came out, but just the fact that I didn't know that she had died and that she died in such a unexpected way, I just felt sort of compelled to add her to the list.
Yeah, that's excuse me. Very young, very sad. Those brain aneurysms. One of those things when it hits you, and that's pretty much it for the most part. Um,
Yeah.
that's really, really sad. I'm gonna move on. This one is one we don't really talk about a lot, and I don't know why because he was so amazing. That's John Candy.
Oh, nice.
John Candy, for those that don't remember, think about him as, from uh what was it? The oh god, I'm drawing a blank. The Canadian version of Saturday Night Live, SCTV. Think of him with Stripes. Think of him with Uncle Buck, Summer Rental, and I just watched it last night, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And by the way, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, probably the best Thanksgiving movie of all time. If you have a better pick, I'd love to hear it. But, he actually died at the age of, what was he, 43 in 1994. Um,
Wow.
so, yeah, really tragic. Um, you watch those movies and there's just something lovable about the guy, right? You just saw him in these different roles and he just seems so incredibly lovable and funny. He played the everyman so perfectly well that was put upon. Summer Rental's another one that I watch and it's hysterical. Loved him in Stripes, especially when he decided they put him in the mud wrestling contest. And you know just a great actor, seemed like a wonderful human being, and somebody we don't mention nearly enough, but I miss John Candy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good pick and not one that I would have thought of. Yeah, I liked him in Stripes a lot as well. I don't remember ever watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and I know that you and I talked about this recently. I'll have to see if I can add that to my list.
You definitely need to watch it, especially right now about before Thanksgiving. It's basically a movie about Steve Martin and John Candy trying to get home for Thanksgiving, hence the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's a John Hughes movie, and I know how much you love John Hughes, and hilarity ensues.
Very cool.
Very, very good movie. I highly recommend it, especially at this time of year. That's one of my go-tos. That movie, and WKRP in Cincinnati with the turkey drop. But that's 70s, so we can't talk about it. Just missed it. It was 79.
Still a classic episode.
Yes, it is.
I think this might be my last pick.
I think you got two more.
Oh, do I have two more? Okay, excellent. I'm actually going to drift away from the music scene and go to an actor. This gentleman was famous for films like Dirty Dancing and Roadhouse and The Outsiders. And my favorite, although that wasn't done in the 80s, is Point Break. I love that flick. I'm talking about Patrick Swayze, and he was just iconic, absolutely iconic in the 80s. And he did some great Saturday Night Live skits. I remember one that he did with Chris Farley where they were trying out for the Chippendales,
Yeah.
Chippendale stripper job, and another one where he was with Hans and Franz, and he was great. And unfortunately, he passed away of pancreatic cancer. And I didn't actually capture or did I? I did. Yeah, so it was August 14th, 2009, and he was 57 years old. It's sad to me that as I was going through this list of how many of these folks died of some form of cancer, and a lot of them really, really young, and he was one of them.
Yeah, that's a great pick. One I didn't even think about, but you think about the 80s and Roadhouse, Dirty Dancing. Point
Ghost.
Break, I know didn't quite make the 80s, but he was in a lot. Red Dawn was another one.
Nice. Yeah, definitely.
But he had a lot of range and continued. You could do it all, right? Roadhouse to Ghost, and so he had a lot of range, and you put him in a lot of different roles. He could be the romantic lead, he'd be the tough guy, and he seemed to do them all well. So that's a great call out. I actually hadn't even thought about it, so that's a good one. Um, I'm going to talk about one other person, excuse me, that wasn't well known, but probably should be. Another guitarist, and that's Dave Pritchard of Armored Saint. If you want to look at one of the all-time great heavy metal bands that never got the respect that they deserve, you'd have to think about Armored Saint. And Dave Pritchard, I think the thing that blew my mind with him is if you listen to the first album of Armored Saint, March of the Saint, versus the second one, which was Delirious Nomad, his playing improved leaps and bounds. Like he went from a guy I was like, yeah, he's all right, to this amazing guitar player. And I was very fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with Armored Saint back in those days. I was actually in the studio with them when they recorded the second album, Delirious Nomad. Um, I was able to, hang out, hear the rough mixes of that done by Max Norman of Ozzy Osbourne fame. I used to have this great photo of me, my buddy John, and Joey Vera, the bassist, leaving Burger King, carrying our Burger King bags, and Joey had it in his mouth. I wish I had that picture somewhere. Um, but Dave Pritchard, we when they came to town, I think later on they came with Saxon, and they played a couple dates in the Bay Area with Saxon, and we went and saw them, and we got to be on their tour bus, hang out with them, and Dave Pritchard was just a super cool, funny guy and a great guitar player. And I asked him about that, his progression, and I was expecting some sort of big answer or something like that, and he goes, just a lot of practicing. And it was kind of funny. It just kind of broke it down to the most basic element, right? Work. And that was something that always stuck with me, that he just worked on his craft and put the time in, put the energy, put in the effort, and was able to get these amazing results. Another Dave Pritchard story that it always cracks me up when I think about it. We were on the tour bus after one of their gigs with Saxon, and there was a knock on the door, and the guys had told us we can just hang out. And this dude comes up and has a case of beer and hands it to me. All right, cool. And they get on the bus and they're like, "Hey, where's the beer?" I'm like, we just got it." And they're like, "Oh, cool, man, right on." So they were super stoked, and they had brought a few young ladies aboard the bus. And I forgot what we were watching on the bus, but Dave secretly went ahead and put in a porno, and it showed a scene where for lack of a, to make this a little bit more PG, a gentleman was getting pleasured by a female, orally pleasured by a female. And he turns to the two girls. He goes, "Ladies, are we getting any ideas now?" And I was dying. I thought it was so damn funny. And super great guy, great guitar player. Sadly, he died of leukemia at the age of 26 in 1990.
Oh man.
Yeah, so just a good dude, man, and great guitar player, and nobody ever talks about him. And it's rather sad, in my opinion, because, like I said, he made such a leap from album one, album two, and was really progressing as a guitar player. I mean, the second, third album, he was phenomenal, but sadly, his life was tragically cut short, and we just have to go back and enjoy what we have of Mr. Dave Pritchard with Armored Saint.
Yeah, that's super sad and super young. It's really cool that you actually got to sort of meet him and hang out with him and sort of take in his personality, get to know him. That's really awesome.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'll never forget that. Ladies getting ideas, classic.
What do they say?
I don't remember. I was too busy laughing at Dave's comment. And of course, I watched the Armored Saint. They did a trip through Red Times as a tribute to Dave Pritchard, and had a lot of great video on there. And they kind of said he was the king of the one-liners, so it wasn't that surprising, that he would throw those kinds of things out there.
Very cool. Very cool that you've got these stories. Let's see, who do I want to pick here? This is actually going to be my last one, I think. All right. Well, I will go with a lady that sort of had a little bit of fame in the movie industry and sort of indirectly, sort of directly had some fame in the music industry as well. She was a guest star on one of the Married with Children episodes. She was in a movie called The Bachelor Party. She was most famous for being in a Whitesnake video, sort of sprawling herself all over one of David Coverdale's Jags in the video. And of course, it's Tawny Kitaen that I'm talking about. So she, again, was famous for all those things that I just mentioned. She was in a couple of other movies that I didn't actually jot down. She died May 7th, 2021, and it was a heart-related issue. I guess it's where your heart is enlarged, and because of that, it can't pump blood the way that it's supposed to, along with, I guess, some other drugs that they found in her heart. They say that that was actually a combination of those things is what led to her demise. And she was 59 years old. Um, so again, I think that it's really every time I think of her, I always picture her, in the White Snake video all over the white Jag and stuff. And that's uh, that's that.
And as I think it was Ant that pointed out, she was also on the cover of Rats Out of the Cellar.
That's right. He did point that out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good call. I don't remember her on Married with Children. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Check that
I
out.
guess she guest starred on one of the episodes.
So I was lucky enough to meet her years ago, a few years back, and I actually had her sign a photo for you. And I was it was like a convention, celebrity convention, and I was there because they were doing a reunion of the Warriors. But she was there, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to get Lewis a photo signed by her. And she's like, "Who am I making this out to?" And we were kind of describing you and your personality, and that's why we said '80s Lou. And she said I don't remember what she wrote, but she goes, "I never write this kind of stuff, so tell him he's special or something like that." And I thought that was really cool of her. And then my wife, said, we all wanted to be you in the '80s. I'm assuming she means females because I didn't want to be her. Want to do other things with her, but not be her. Um, and she goes, "Can I get a picture?" Well, you were supposed to pay for a photo and everything. And I don't think my wife realized that at the time. And she goes, "Well, you're not really supposed to." She goes, "But just lean in and kind of take it on the down low." So she let me take a photo of Nancy and her, complimentary, and just very cool. I know she had some issues. She had some demons, like so many people, but my short time and experience with her, I found her to be very sweet, and I had a very wonderful interaction with her.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I love the autograph photo. Very cool.
Yeah, and I don't see it hanging up anywhere. So if you knew she was on your list, why is that photo not at the ready? All right, well,
How do you know it's not?
all right, well, where is it?
It's right here.
Well, show it. Ah, there you go. What did she write? I can't read it.
Let's see. To 80s Lou, lots of love. Tawny Contain, Kiss Me. XO.
Wow, Tawny knew what was up. She knew what '80s Lou was about. Well, I'm gonna end mine. Probably not the biggest star, and probably a lot of people don't know him, but meant a ton to me. Um, and I'm talking about the comedian Bill Hicks.
Oh, nice.
I remember seeing him in the very late '80s, and our buddy Jim, who we used to work at the Record Exchange, was also a stand-up comedian. And he's like, "Dude, you got to go check out this dude, Bill Hicks. He's like the outlaw comic. You're really going to enjoy him. He's, just totally different." And because of that, I was introduced to Bill Hicks and his comedy. I probably saw him 10 or 12 times. I remember one
Wow.
time I was sitting in the front row and he was flicked his cigarette and actually got on me. He's like, "Dude, I'm sorry." He goes, "Oh, great. Now this guy's going to sue me and he's going to get my boots." And I thought he was great. He's one of those comedians that the greatest compliment I can give is for a long, long, long time. I'd always be like, "Wow, I wonder what Bill Hicks would say about this." And I can't think of anything greater to give a comic, accolades and to say, "Wow, I wonder what their opinion would have been about this issue or that issue or how they would have spun that." And I think that speaks volumes of him, and his work. I think his work still remains relevant, even though some of the subject matter may have changed, but it's still pretty much relevant. And sadly, he died in 1994 at the age of 32, and yes, he had pancreatic cancer as well. Um, and it's one of those things where, kind of like Rebecca Schaefer, right? He had all this stuff that was going on, where his career would have gone. And by the way, I might just put this out there. The sad thing is, Dennis Leary got famous and Bill Hicks didn't. And I can't tell you how many times Dennis Leary directly ripped off Bill Hicks, like his
Really?
bits on smoking and things like that. Yeah, he total rip off. And it's one of those things that the imitator became more famous than the master, and it was kind of sad. So if you like comedy with edge, a lot of edge, definitely check out Bill Hicks. He has some documentaries out. There's a documentary about his life called American, the Bill Hicks story. Great stuff. He should be better known, but I was fortunate enough to get to know him. Thank you, Jim, and see him perform many, many times. And I still hold those memories of his performances very near and dear to my heart.
Very cool. Yeah, you're absolutely fortunate to have been able to see him so many times and to have discovered his genius when it was, when many others maybe hadn't seen it, like myself. Very, very cool. I sort of put him in the same category as George Carlton, where, it's comedy, but there's a lot that makes you think as, they're doing their comedy. So Yeah, good call. Very good call.
Yeah. You mean George Carlin, right? Not Carlton?
Carlin, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure. I was like, who's George Carlton? I was kind of thinking. One of the funny things is a few years ago, we went to the Comedy Store in LA. And I was wearing a Bill Hicks shirt, and we hadn't bought tickets yet. And this guy at the Comedy Store, this young kid, probably never was able to see Bill Hicks. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "Sir, do you have tickets already?" I said, "No, we need to buy them." He goes, "Well, you're not buying them because you're wearing a Bill Hicks shirt. I won't allow anyone with a Bill Hicks shirt to buy tickets." And so he got us in for free at the Comedy Store. So that speaks volumes about his influence still being felt today, which is amazing.
Awesome. Very cool.
So I see we're running out of time here, so I don't want to go over and have this thing cut off. Who do you guys miss from the 80s? There's so many we could talk about for whatever reason. In Lewis's case, they had to be named Eddie. In my case, they may not have been the biggest stars, but for whatever reason, their deaths really hit me personally. Love to hear what you think, what we got right, what we got wrong. Well, we didn't get anything wrong, but who we should have put in there. I mean, you think Whitney, Michael, Prince. I'm so shocked you didn't pick Prince. But again, we just want to talk about ones that really, for whatever reason, hit us a little deeper than the others. So let us know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. I forgot who recommended that we do this. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was Karen, lady I went to high school with. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. We appreciate the ideas. If you have any more, let us know. And as always, we thank you guys for watching. Lou, take us out, brother.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys.